thank you for having me. I think they are addressing the wrong issue here, because what I did raise in that letter was about investigating specific allegations, and those allegations were clearly stated in the letter about plans being hatched to assassinate senior political leaders and senior military officers, and the portfolio which I held, I wrote in that capacity, requiring the Director General of the Internal Security Organization to carry out those investigations and establish whether they were correct or false. Therefore, for them to come and deny before any investigations are carried out and try then to cover up by imputing the wrong motives on me, who was performing his duty, to say the least, shows some culpability, because I would have expected them to make serious comment after investigations. No investigations have been made. They are making sweeping denials, and as far as I'm concerned, that is merely diversionary. As to whether the young man is being prepared or not, that should be investigated. But their feelers, you do not promote a person from a private in 10 years to a general. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. There is no war where that young man has been fighting. He's been doing a course every other 1 year before he even practices what he's learned in the previous course. The next month, he's sent on another one. He's a young man of 30s, and you make him a service commander of Special Forces. So Special Forces Command, you do not explain, you do not pass through the laid down procedures. You abuse the law, which is supposed to be followed in promotions, in training, in recruitment, and in deployment itself, because there are specific criteria. There is criteria which should be followed. Seniority, for instance, capability, discipline, intelligence, operational. You must acquit yourself in some of these aspects of command and control. So command is not a matter of guesswork and who you love and who is related to you. And so there is no doubt that on the surface of it, everything points at something basically wrong with the way the president has been handling the issues of his son. And therefore, the burden, the onus is on him to clarify these issues and not sweep them under the carpet.
You have been asked by the government to come down to explain your point. Why haven't you gone back to, as a matter of fact, explain your letter or raise concerns about it?
How was I supposed to go back and explain the contents of the letter? Because I was going back on Saturday. I think it was the 9th or something. And then armored personnel carriers were they were deployed. They surrounded the airport. Troops, from special forces, from military police, from regional police. The whole of Entebbe, stretch of 30 kilometers every inch was full of soldiers waiting for me, and tanks and armored personnel carriers and riot, whatever. Everything was waiting for me. The plan had been to arrest me at the tarmac, at the runway, put me on a helicopter, fly me to a place 60 miles north of Kampala called Nakasongola. The next day, make a mock attack that I was going to be rescued. And then I'm killed in crossfire. And then they say that whom now they had already prepared, that those were my rebels, had come to rescue me. So there was already an elaborate plan even to eliminate me. So it's laughable for those gentlemen to come and pretend, holier than thou, that they want me to go and explain. How do you wait for me with tanks at the airport? What type of reception is that for me to come and give you my story? So it was a non-starter. This was a deliberate plan to kill me in the process and cover up these serious issues which I was raising.
Does that mean that based on your suspicion of a plan to assassinate you, you will not go to Uganda anytime soon.
These are not suspicions. This is circumstantial evidence. There is what we call circumstantial evidence. The circumstances point to that. Because the way the government reacted initially, wanting to arrest me, preparing crack units, I wasn't armed. I was coming from London. I was on British Airways. I was going to land like an ordinary person. People who have no sinister motive could have even allowed me to go home and thereafter arrest me or call me to headquarters or anywhere and I appear. By the way, don't think that this is an isolated incident, because before that I had written strongly. There had been a plot by Mr. Museveni and his group to carry out a palace coup against themselves. And many generals came up. First of all, the president went and addressed his own party at a certain retreat and warned them, sort of prepared public opinion about this coup, because he knows that his son or any other person for that matter, because he is really personal rule of a family, they cannot pass through a democratic mechanism to assume power. So the only thing would be to use the military. And then he started preparing public opinion. He went to Chankwanzi and prepared, the MPs and so on, that a coup is possible. In fact, in his first of-year address, 2013, he did categorically say that the problem of Uganda were civilians. This is on record. This was the first time that a leader who came on a revolutionary ticket of a people's struggle, for the first time I heard such a leader say that the problem of Uganda were the civilians. And I quote him, "Of all these problems we are having, it's not the army, it's not the military forces, it's the civilians. And in this coming year, I will deal with civilians decisively." I quote him, got his presidential address. It was absolutely stunning that a president can say that the problem of Uganda are civilians. So they started preparing public opinion. After that, his Minister of Defense went to a parliamentary committee and talked about it and said, yes, the military will take over. After that, they called the Chief of Defense Forces. They coerced him. He didn't agree with that stand. And then he went on TV and warned the whole country that, yes, the military will take over. And they had already prepared a plan, which I will not go into now. Partly also within that plan was to carry out a purge of people who did not support this so-called project of his son and family. And by so doing, they would achieve two things: use extrajudicial methods to capture power, but also remove any, whatever they considered roadblocks, those characters those people whom they thought that they were going to oppose this project. So this one, we talked against it, and I'm on record. I wrote a very long article warning the country and those in power that this was going to be very dangerous and it would cause serious instability in the country.
One thing they have been saying is that you have been erratic and you have not been a real army man in the true sense of addressing issues of the army within the army rank and file. And
I was not employed. My job description was not within the rank and file. I was head of security services. I was head of intelligence services. And I was under President's office, not Minister of Defense. That's my job description.
But they are saying that the allegations you are making about a plot to a palace school, it's too wild.
It does not matter what you think. This is a matter I said should be investigated. It does not matter whether you think it's wild or not. I'm not making them as categorical. I'm saying these were issues which all were known. They could be false, they could be true, and I demanded for investigations. What was wrong with that? So how can you come and blame someone who is performing his duties and demanding that you investigate specific allegations? What is that logic? I don't understand it. These are wild allegations, so they should not be investigated.
Some of your supporters are saying that President Museveni and some of his loyalists could come after you. Others are saying, no, there's a judicial process in the country and that you need to defend the letter, among other things. Do you fear for your life at the moment?
Of course. I do not only fear for my life, I know it has for a fact that I do not want to go into all this, because the things I have told you are things which I wrote in my letter, and others are all these things which I'm talking about are also a subject already of the ongoing debate in the country. I have deliberately not commented on matters which have come to me in the course of my duty, but I can for sure tell you that there have been several times when these attempts have been made, not only on me, but on others. So as a matter of fact, I can tell you that it's not only my life which is in danger, but lives of many leaders in that country, because the political system has broken down. There is anarchy and there is panic and there is fear within the political fabric of the state. And the only way to rein in all these upcoming voices of dissent is through force and repression. There is no science about that. This is the elementary way any repressive regime works. It resorts force and intimidation and murder. Otherwise, why would you deploy anti-personnel carriers and tanks and so on against an unarmed person who had just written his letter requiring that you investigate issues?
Now, General, you worked directly under President Museveni, as you said. Why didn't you go straight to him and ask him if this project is indeed true? So why didn't you just go to him man to man and ask him about this instead of writing this letter?
No. Okay, let me explain this. Man to man is a different matter. If I was saying that President Museveni in that letter was going to do this, then that would have become an issue between me and him. But where suspicion has been raised as to the intended actions of a group, you demand for investigation. You do not resort to personal. So I would have gone to the president and I say, sir, I hear you want to kill people, and it ends there. This is how you work. That's not how things work. This was an internal correspondence between the chiefs of intelligence. The fact that it was leaked has nothing to do with me. This was my job to say the following has come. And by the way, there is nothing so spectacular here. I can tell you that just a few months back, a lady, an MP had been killed called Serena Nevanda. And the president was accused of having had a hand openly, even in parliament. Members of parliament were arrested, including doctors, including a pathologist who was going with body parts in South Africa. The president had to come out personally with his wife to defend themselves against these murder allegations. So this has been going on, even in the public arena, in the debate of the death of specific officers, including Reta Mayombo, including Kazini, the former army commander. The list goes on. There is nothing spectacularly, that links me as a person on these claims. These have been in the public arena, being debated in the country. These accusations are going on openly. And the only thing which is new now is that the government is resorting to abrasive and really murderous means to silence people.
So, General, you are basically saying that the democratic path that Uganda has taken is not working at the moment due to the breakdown of institutions in the country. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, of course. There is no institutional framework that can guide the politics of that country anymore. Because you see, if your intention is to perpetuate an illegitimate project, the first thing you do is to undermine the legitimate institutions of state. So what do? You muzzle parliament, you introduce corruption to control state structures, you undermine structures in the security services and the army, you undermine the judiciary, and then you emasculate the population. For instance, the poverty levels in the country, when you hear about this economy and so on, it's a hoax. Because you see, the economy, yes, there is growth. But you see, when you are talking about growth and wealth, there must be empowerment of the population. It must trickle down. The poverty levels and the corruption levels and the breakdown of the state institutions and instability in the country. Even foreign direct investment is falling. You've just heard that international organizations and donor countries, they cut off aid because of corruption. This corruption goes back to the first family. That's why it cannot be solved. Anyone who thinks that corruption in Uganda can be solved is just dreaming. Because in order to solve it, you must deal with the head of state. It is within his household. This is the whole thing. So that corruption now is a monster which has created its own power base. Corruption grows into a monster so much so that no one can control it anymore because it controls the judiciary, it controls the police, the CID, the prosecution. In other words, corruption becomes a power center of its own. This is what is happening in Uganda. And unless it is tackled at the highest point, there is no way anyone can fight and defeat corruption in Uganda now. Therefore, if you do not do that, as we speak now, there is no way you can talk about even economic growth, economic transformation, and emancipation of our people. It cannot happen. You take away these bottlenecks of institutional building, of eradicating corruption, and of popular involvement in government programs.
So what is your future? Are you going to seek asylum outside because of what you say is you being persecuted?
My future is the future like all Ugandans. What is the future of those children who are in jail? What is the future of those people who are being killed now? What is the future of those peasants? Do you hear that we have jiggers? Jiggers are killing people in Uganda. Jiggers, do you know jiggers? What are jiggers? Do you know that? Yes, in Uganda we have jiggers killing people. Not as jiggers. Jiggers are insects. I don't know what they call them. They like maggots. They just enter people's limbs and mouths and legs, and hundreds of people are dying in the 21st century. And there is no program. Right now, as we speak, I can give you an example. You see, they have given defense a trillion. They have given agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture, which employs 89% of our population, 300 billion. 300 billion Uganda shillings is equivalent to maybe 100 million US dollars. That is what employs 89% of the population, and you give it $100 million. And then you give a trillion to Ministry of Defense. Why? Because it is about securing personal rule, about investing in cohesive structures of the state, not empowering the productive forces of the country. This is where we are going.
Are you officially not a member of the intelligence unit anymore in Uganda? Have you relinquished your post?
So you want me to go and you want me to go and be a member when I'm dead? Is that what you are saying? That I should go back in order to become a member in my grave? It's a non-starter. You can only be a member of an organization when you're a free man, not when you are threatened with death and incarceration or whatever. So I will not go into that because that is just a matter of, that's a moot point really. That is, if people are waiting for you with tanks.
What if the government want to extradite you to Uganda to go defend?
To do what? To extradite me for what crime? For what crime? What crime have I committed that requires me to be extradited? Because international law recognizes specific crimes that makes a person subject to extradition law. It's not just because someone is crazy about keeping in power, and then he comes and commences extradition process. No, international law is basically clear. It's clear on what offenses you've committed. There must be a process. So that's not the issue. The issue is what is in the country. That is the real issue. The real issue is that there is instability in the country. There is breakdown of social harmony. There is breakdown of political direction and cohesion. These are the issues. There is it's even affecting the project of regional integration. You see, all the countries which surround us, they have term limits. Uganda, our current president is going for a seventh term. And he goes down. Every year that passes, he becomes younger. He revises his year of when he was born, and so on. So we are stuck in a vicious circle of having, it does not matter. You have no way of getting out of this cycle of violence, there must be a way which can be determined on how issues must be resolved politically, of how power must change hands.
Looking at the political situation in the country, what do you think is the best way forward to address the concerns that you've enumerated?
First of all, what should be done is that because these are serious issues, they are issues to deal with politics, there are issues to deal with democracy and the rule of law, there are issues to deal with human rights, there are issues which must deal with safeguards against future abuse of power, there are issues of the economy, there are issues of regional integration and international partnership, there are issues even of environment and food security. People are hungry. You are talking about, a broad spectrum of problems that are facing our country. That we can no longer pretend that it can be business as usual. Either the leadership, because there was a mechanism. For instance, there has been talk about reintroducing term limits. These term limits, once they are reintroduced, you see, Parliament has been intimidated and emasculated. Otherwise, putting their term limits without disallowing the current president to run is meaningless. So if the system was working, we would have term limits reinstated and Mr. Museveni would not be permitted to run again.
Now, let me ask you...
If that does not happen, the country definitely will slide into anarchy. There will be chaos and we shall fight on those streets of that city. This is what I was warning about. I've been talking about and warning the country against, that you can no longer pretend everything is fine. If we continue pretending, we are going to cause instability in the country. Therefore, the political class and the political leadership must rise to the challenge of letting the institutions work, for instance, Parliament, of re-establishing the rule of law to allow political pluralism to work. So we must go back to the drawing board of having an orderly political process. If we do not do that, then forceful methods will have to be used to bring change. And this is what I fear.
If you fear for your life, are you therefore in hiding or you are a free man where you are? I'm
talking to you. Whether I'm hiding, you can, with the new technology, you can talk even when you're hiding. So that's not, don't go into that now, because you, I'm fine where I am. I can travel. I haven't asked for political asylum. I can go back to Uganda. So that should not be a problem. And that should not be the issue of concern right now. The issue of concern is beyond me as a person. It's wrong to personalize this struggle. This is broader. This is bigger. This is deeper than me, the person. Because this touches on the 34 million Ugandans who are facing these threats because of the upcoming instability and chaos. This is bigger than me. Therefore, those who want to, make me the central figure, the center of gravity of this whole, it's wrong. They are trying to divert public attention. Really, the issue should